That's fine. You got to hit the got it first.
Sound is live.
Boom, boom.
Sound is live. There you go. That's okay. Just keep going.
Other than Facebook, we're good.
Sounds good. You like that, Ron?
Yes. Beautiful.
Hold on, our audio. Let's go. Okay. Hello and welcome to Donuts for Breakfast at Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. A quick plug for Rosh, who made that little intro video. So if you joined it, give her a little shout out. If you enjoyed it, give her a little shout out. My name is Trevor Henley. I'm the inspirational activist and founder of Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. On the left, we have the Honorable Dr. Michael Pritchard with us back again. Thank you for joining us again.
Be here.
And we have over here, we have Ra, our operations director, intelligent being that she is. And we're going to downplay it a little bit today because I think you're going to come out and get on your soapbox a few times.
Maybe. We'll see how it
So we're
goes.
excited about that. And I'm very grateful and honored that we have Areceli Nunez
Good
with
morning.
School to Career in the Marin County Office of Education.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us today. And we've had a long relationship working with the apprentices in the School to Career program, and we're ever so grateful for the work that you do and the School to Career program does. And we're really glad to have you with us today.
I'm
for a
so excited
conversation.
to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
So glad.
So we have a whole list of questions. Let's see, they're
All the
right here.
questions. All of them.
I was briefed, yeah.
Yeah, perfect, right? So where do we want to start today? I mean, it's Latino Heritage, Hispanic Heritage
Spanish
Month?
Heritage Month, and I want to clarify for everyone because there was a bit of confusion. Hispanic Heritage Month is from September 15th
To October.
to October 15th. So it is a 30-day period
Yeah, that's confusing.
in the middle of 2 months, and that threw our schedule off a little bit, but we're working around that. Araceli, do you have any particular feelings about Hispanic Heritage Month? Do you feel like it's being given the time and attention that it should be given?
I think it definitely varies by organization or where you identify from.
Yeah.
Like, I know for schools, they'll do different ways to honor Hispanic Heritage Month, either through celebrating the staff that do come from that culture, or setting up, like, I know some of our school libraries set up, like, not presentations, but just a center within the libraries to showcase, like, Frida Kahlo, Dolores Huerta. Like, I'm a Sonoma State student, and I know that our associate student body is doing different kind of events
Nice.
to celebrate that, but also talk to the younger generation about the history of it. Like September 15th or the 16th is Mexican Independence Day. And a lot of people confuse that with other Latin American or South American countries where they have their Independence Day on the 15th as well. So it does kind of get confusing to your point where Hispanic Heritage Month does start September 15th and it goes through October 15th.
Yeah.
But I just think the more we talk about it for especially the younger generations that don't know how to identify,
Right,
because it is a loaded question when we have students applying to programs, we ask them because we want to identify what gaps we're missing, like what student groups aren't we hitting.
Yeah.
We ask them their ethnicity, which is basically, are you Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, or are you not of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin? Sometimes they don't know. And then when it comes to the race question, Hispanic or Latino isn't on there. So they're like, I don't know what I am. Am I Hispanic? Am I Latino,
Yeah,
Latinx, Mexican? Like, what do I identify as? There's so much.
Do you feel comfortable differentiating between Hispanic, Latinx, and the one that you said.
Latino.
Oh, and Latino. Like I personally thought that Latinx kind of covered this broad, it was like a broad spectrum for Latino-based heritage.
Right.
Is that correct?
I am not 100% certain. From what I've read, Latinx, I think it encompasses everything how you were saying, but it also takes away the gender portion of
Right.
it. So to accompany
It's
anybody who is
gender-neutral.
identifying as LGBTQ,
Right.
that probably doesn't feel comfortable or represented within Hispanic,
Right.
Latina, Latino.
Right, because it
So-
is gendered as a gendered language.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So that being said, I found it really interesting because if I'm remembering, I'm getting old, y'all. When I was in college, we had Latino Heritage Month. And now, I don't know if maybe there's a Latino Heritage Month and a Hispanic Heritage Month, but I was, through my sociology courses, it was explained to me that Hispanic was any culture that was Spanish speaking. And that didn't necessarily, like, Brazilians wouldn't fall under the category of Hispanic because they speak Portuguese.
Right.
So it's an interesting amalgamation. Like there's a lot of different pieces that go into really taking the opportunity to explain these rich cultural differences.
Right.
I'm just curious as to how well we're succeeding in really representing and being inclusive about the history, because it's a richer history than the U.S. is.
Yeah.
Latin America was flourishing and living its best life long before settlers got
Right.
there. And I think that it's important to recognize how new America is in retrospect. Like Latin America has a deep, deep history, and our Latin American citizens bring that with us,
Right.
and it needs to be celebrated.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
That's all.
Soapbox one. Very nice. I like it. Well, it's true. I mean, it needs to be celebrated, and then the whole. I mean, maybe from just all the shows we've done, the plethora of information. Is it Latino? Is it Hispanic? Is it Latinx? What am I supposed to say? What are we celebrating? Right? I'm still not clear, and we're doing a show about it, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of different names.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I think the key, if I'm right, Areceli, is respect is listening
Right.
and being open to the opportunity to gather information. As my brilliant sister here has taught me more than all of my college professors combined from where I went to college. And I'm not exaggerating. And she and Cesar and Trevor have been instrumental in my 70s being in my second round of college. Because what they've learned and what they teach me makes me more respectful, makes me more aware, makes me more appreciative of youngsters in America, that the DACA youngsters. When I'm around them all the time, they make me weep. Because you're so filled with a loyalty and love for all things that are good to community. Now, I'm not saying, it's the ultimate pie in the sky patriotism. No. Everything that works to help any place is started at the community level.
Right.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
And then when you do that, when you get people to buy in, you're like, this is it. This is what this is supposed to be. This big picture
Yeah.
is about the little picture more. They always go, think locally in community and act globally through working in community. Yes, because when I'm at the Marin Office of Education, I'm constantly listening to kids, and they make me so happy. I think what we are promised is arriving.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
Right.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming. I definitely
Right,
agree.
yeah.
I think out of the wound that has been the last 2 years, I think the
What a
younger
great description.
generations have risen. Like the healing has been a cleansing. It's been a paradigm shift. The amount of respectfulness that exists in like little ones in a way that it didn't exist before.
That's what
and it's
I see it.
you compare it to, older generations will be like, oh, these young kids, they have no respect for their elders. And I'm like, yeah, but they respect humanity, which is a whole lot more important.
Wow, there's the line.
That's a
There's the
whole
line.
lot more important.
Right.
The fact that a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old will happily and proudly defend a peer and tell a grown person that they are wrong
Right.
is something to be applauded.
Yes. Brilliantly put.
Yeah.
Again, great teacher.
I think going back to Trevor, what you were saying, like, so what are we celebrating this month? I think you hit it right on the nail. It's, at least for my experience growing up, like both my parents are from Mexico. They immigrated here from Aguascalientes. They didn't have anything more than like a middle school education. And they came here for the opportunity to make something of themselves, but most importantly, like give a better opportunity to their future kids. So myself and my 2 younger
Right.
sisters. But with that, it's so much of like a community building, which when you like said community, I was like, yeah, that's exactly it. That's one of the pillars that we celebrate. It's whenever somebody comes from, at least my experience with it, and it could be with other minority groups too. If somebody reaches a level of success, it's not that they're leaving everybody else high and dry. They're bringing people with them. So you reach to a point where you were at C, now you're at B. You extend your hand back and see how many people you can bring up with you.
Right.
Because it's not just like, oh, I made it, now I'm good. No, it's like you bring up your whole community that raised you.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That community is powerful. I think it's interesting, and I would be curious to compare minority communities. Not in a, well, I won't say compare, because comparing is the thief of joy. Do not compare. But to parallel how
The thief of joy. I like that. I'm gonna
it
remember that.
is. I got it from a book. I can't remember.
You don't have to.
Because I know, I'm coming from the Black community, there is that want, that deep need to, if you are successful, if you make it to a certain level of success, to go back into your community and give it back. But there is also that, they're better than us now, we don't want your money, you got that money dirty, you're a sellout. Like the idea that surpassing your beginnings is somehow negative. And I wonder if that level of conflict exists in the Latinx community. I've never seen it. I've never heard it. It's never been a cliche.
Right.
Like out of all of the minority American communities, Latino communities just have this abundance of love and camaraderie that it just, nothing cuts into that.
right.
Nothing cuts into that. It's pretty amazing to see and to occasionally get invited.
So following that pathway,
Yeah.
what is it you most, Areceli, what do you most want your sisters to know about your path?
About
And what
my
you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And because your sisters, they're, of course, it's the best sermon is a good example, but you are a great sermon.
Are you the eldest?
I am the eldest.
Oh, tell
It's a
me.
tough cross to bear.
I was the baby.
I was the baby too, so.
No, yeah, I am the eldest. I don't know. Can I say a little bit about
Absolutely.
what I do?
Yes,
Yeah.
please. Yes.
So I knew Trevor from the School to Career program. I was
Yeah.
a business education liaison. Basically, I would work at the high schools in specifically Santa Fe, SR, TL, and Madrone, matching students up with internships. And throughout the years, I started in 2016. I always knew I wanted to be helping and working with community members. Exactly how, I didn't know, but I just started talking with people. And next thing comes out of it where I now am part of the admin team at MCOE, where I am helping create more college and career exploration programs for
Right.
all students to do.
Yes.
So we're not just like wanting the AP students or
Right.
the honor students to go out and do an internship.
Everybody.
We want all students.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're an ELL student, if you are a student with special needs, if you don't want to do the college route.
Why is that neurodiversity, even in any community, so important? You know, no matter what our background, the grades, status, all of that, why is it so
Right.
important to make sure that they're all included? What does that teach everybody at
Right.
the same time?
Well, I think that teaches everybody like that they are unique, they are important, they do have a voice, and they do. What we try to do through our programs is not only showcase them what they can do
Right?
as possible careers, but also show them what don't you like to do. So at least now you know before you make a big investment
Right.
further
Right.
down the road.
Right.
But a big shift we're trying to do is like for specifically career technical education, we want all students, but also their parents, to realize this is for all type of students.
You're teaching community.
Exactly. Like
Right.
you can take a CTE class that's going to help prepare you in some form of way, either with soft skill development or teaching you how to network before you go off to college, or if you go to the community college or start an apprenticeship program.
Yeah.
It's going to help you either way.
Yeah.
Perhaps
I
maybe more
wholeheartedly
so than
agree.
just being in a traditional normal classroom.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of doing like a specialized CTE program kind of thing. But to answer your point, I think one of the biggest things that I would want, not only my sisters, but just any student that I interact with, it's like you have the choice and the power to decide what you want to do. You don't necessarily need to follow what your older sibling has done, what your parents want you to do. You get to do trial and error and figure out what works for you, what are your strengths that you probably haven't identified yet, and how can you use them and where can you use them. And part of what I like about and where I'm at with work is growing up, I didn't really have educators that sounded like me or looked like me when I would talk Spanish, or when I would say like, oh, I had menudo en pozole. Like people are like, what's that? And it's like,
Menudo's
like
delicious.
yeah, exactly. But the more, and like studies have shown where if a student is exposed, the earlier the better, to somebody that looks like them, sounds like them, or that they can relate to, they are a whole bunch like just their doors open so much in the sense that they believe that they can do whatever it is that they want to do.
Because if you build confidence in one area, it will
Exactly.
expand to every other area or
Exactly.
many other areas.
Why representation is so
Yeah.
important.
Quick point of reference: CTE.
Career technical education.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You are a blessing to our community.
True story.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's true, because you operate from heart,
Yeah.
and this is who you are, and to be able to tell people this, and this is what over the years leadership that is disconnected from heart and just all brain oriented suffers the most in systems, and as well in trying to find leadership, because they're hurting. They don't know what to do because they don't know how to lead, because they're not connected to that 14 inches between brain and heart. And you are obviously a brilliant leader. And someday when you're superintendent of schools and or the business director of the entire school district, and you know, just continue to make your sisters aware, even when they roll their eyes.
Right.
Right?
I
Because
get a lot
they,
of that. I have a younger sister who's 18, and she's like, I don't want to do school. And was
I
like,
don't
"Okay."
even. I got even. I love that.
I feel like that's one of the reasons why we've not really actually ever conversed more than a few seconds up until this last year, right? But the instant connection, by you spelling out why you're doing what you're doing, is like perfect, because the whole point of the internship that we've been running and now is our basic mission is to give the people the experience to say, hey, if you want to follow this path, we'll give you the tools to possibly do it on your own, or to become an employee somewhere, or to be like, yo, y'all are nuts, I want to go be an accountant or something else,
Right.
right? And it's to give you the experience to figure out what you want to do and pursue your passion in life.
And never doubt the importance of your voice. Your voice, this
Right.
donuts for breakfast, your voice is
Yeah.
urgently important for Marin County. Urgently important for Marin County. It's like a brilliant no-dose. Wake up, folks. There's a world all around us, you know. And I mean, think of my son growing up in Marin, and both of them went to do internships in Central America, one in Peru, and then one at a clinic in Nicaragua at Ometepe when he was a doctor at the clinic. And he learned Spanish because he lived with he was in a family.
Right.
And he was there, and and it changed everything for him and his perceptions. And that's how we grow as human beings. Get outside your comfort zone, right? And we need to be exporting our human folks to locations
Yes.
and helping them become ambassadors of hope to locations where there's levels of poverty that I think that when I take youngsters at Terra Linda, I work with Hogar de los Niños in Nicaragua and Managua, and Mi Corazón, Mi Sueño, and getting the kids just to go down, go see Managua, go see the poverty,
Yeah.
and wake up and be aware
Yeah.
of what it does and what we can do to bring these promised individuals up so that we're not haters at the border.
Right.
It makes no sense, I'm not getting into the all America. I don't want to get into politics. What I want to get into is that there are bridges that need to be built by young people like you. And just like Rob was saying this morning, we're always impressed by the brilliance of young people that we come in contact with.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in my 70s. I learned more from young people like you. You've been working in our school education system, which is awesome, which shows me that their leadership gets it too. Good.
They're getting better. Again, that long road. We were talking about about your son being in South America and learning the language.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting observing children learning a language academically versus learning a language authentically through immersion.
Immersion.
I think the best way to learn a culture and to appreciate a culture is to learn it in the language that it is lived in.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very pivotal part of being able to leave the country, is to hear people explain their lived experience in the language that supports that lived experience. And I know one of the things I appreciate about my children's school, I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old, is they read just as many books in Spanish as they do in English. It's just
That's amazing.
whatever they pick, and it's the book, and it's to the point where when I was my son was in kindergarten, I was a library aide. I would come in, and the kids would bring me books in English and books in Spanish. It was just assumed, because both books were read so frequently, that anybody could read them.
Right.
And I love that like blasé in children, like, oh no, I hear my language all the time, whether it's somebody of my origin or not, that I just assume everybody can speak can
Right.
speak my language. And I feel like that probably rubs certain people the wrong way, but it was actually very
Yeah, I get it.
touching to me to have these little girls come up to me with this Spanish book, and there was no question. They were just like, "Well, you read this to me," and I was like, "I will do my absolute best. I will do my absolute best." And I love that. I love the idea that we are coming to a place where no matter what someone looks like, there is that instant connection. That assumption isn't that you are other, but that in some way you are like me.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is what do you want the folks in the leadership structure of, say, Sacramento and Washington, D.C. to understand? Because we're on the front lines in California, all right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, no doubt about it. And the world is shifting in a good way. Why is it so important for our leadership to get why you are important and what you're doing as an ambassador of hope to young people? What do you say to them? What do you say to our leaders in DC and in Sacramento?
I think you started off really well where you were saying just listening.
Yeah.
I think that's where it starts, really. Just not saying anything. You are observing and you're listening to people's shared experiences, where they're coming from, what their viewpoints are, what their concerns are, and actually taking them into consideration and saying, okay, what can I do with this power that I'm in? I think part of the reason why myself and the rest of my team do what we do is because we see how important each individual student is. I mean,
Yeah.
people in general, we're all important. We all have something to contribute. We all have a value added. It's just, how can we help them discover that so that they can continue to go into society and continue to add value through whatever means that they do. I think so many times, like, people, going back to what you were saying, like, that connection of, it's just assumed that you would speak Spanish because everybody else does. So why, like,
Yeah.
kids are so amazing like that. Like,
Yes, they are.
you know? But it just goes back to that, like, community building again and connectivity. Like, I've worked in retail and education pretty much my whole life, and I don't look per se 100% like what you would think a Hispanic would look like. In my family, I'm the whitest one. And with that comes like certain privileges. Like, you are whiter, you're more accepted as compared to someone from Oaxaca who is very short and has darker skin pigmentation, and their dialect is different in Spanish as well. So within that, it's more so just being like accepting, and like, I always bring it back to an example, like the people, or I treat people with the same amount of respect, from our superintendent to our janitorial staff. I feel more comfortable with our janitorial staff. Why? Because they remind me of my uncles, my aunts, like people that I grew up with. And even when you're just working with families that, like, parents that are trying, they're working 2-3 jobs, but they still manage to make it to school to see what's going on with their kid. Why aren't they doing
Yeah.
this? And they're just like looking for somebody to listen to them. And the moment they're like, ¿hablas español? And I was like, sí. Then that just like, you just sense a whole
Doors
sigh
open.
of relief. Like, okay, yes, somebody can help me here. Somebody's going to listen to me. And that's just how it starts.
It's how you receive
So
it. Yeah.
what can we do, us white folks, so to speak, that don't speak Spanish in that moment?
Find a friend, phone a friend. I'm just kidding.
Well, but I mean, you're probably more on it than you think, right? I mean, so how can we create that connection in those situations where, you know, I would respond, hablo poquito
Yeah.
español, yo stupido gringo. Lo siento, right? That's what I would respond with, right? And I could catch maybe a few words, but it's not going to do the conversation any
Right.
justice. They'll laugh at me, which will create some sort of bond in that regard.
Yeah.
But what can be done at that moment?
I think precisely what you just said, just even starting or initiating it, because
Bridge.
as a person of color, it's really scary to even ask for help or to initiate that type of conversation, or be like, I could be like, I know I'm struggling, but yeah, I don't want to make that first move to seek help.
Can I ask another stupid question in that regard? Probably no stupid questions, right? What do I say? No stupid questions except for the one you don't ask. So if I am, well, would it be offensive if I walked up and said, habla inglés, or what? Like, how,
Yes.
like if I were to, how could I initiate that conversation to have them be comfortable to reach out in that regard?
So
You know what I'm trying to ask,
Yes.
right?
Well,
Filter that.
your statement. How do you? So what he's asking is, how can he make that first step so that they don't have to? And that's a really good question. But it's, your response is you centered and not them centered. So you asking them if they speak English is you centered.
Right.
So rather than saying that, saying something like, no hablas español, necesito ayuda.
Yeah.
Do you need help?
Right.
And saying, I can't give you this, but I would love to find somebody who can, centers them.
And what if you can't even say those words in Spanish?
Shame on you. No.
That's not fair. But even those that learned it at one point and can't regurgitate anything correctly.
I would say,
Question.
ask in English.
Yeah.
Do you need any
Can I
help?
help you?
Right.
And if their response is Spanish, 1 second,
Right.
big smile, like,
Yeah.
Right,
I can
Yeah,
find
there
somebody
you
to
go.
help you.
Big smile.
Right.
Yeah. A
Big
smile goes a long
Yeah,
way.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
I had a little kid at what is now Venetia Valley, was Galena School in third grade. We were filming a rehearsal for a PBS show, and she said, I had a friend from first grade who was hungry in her eyes for somebody to be her friend. And I go, what do you mean hungry in her eyes? Well, she's deaf. And she would sit alone, and I couldn't take it. And she goes, I speak Spanish, and I didn't know how to reach out, and she goes, now she is rich from the hill, and we're from apartment, and not rich, but we're like best friends. And I said, what have you learned? She goes, well, now I always listen a lot more with my eyes and my heart than I do with my ears and my brain. And my camera guy, big Scottish guy, he starts getting weepy.
Yeah.
And he goes, I have a deaf son. I'll be back. I'll be back in a second here. I don't have it together yet. And I was like, wow. And because what we learn is that it's not centered from the brain, but from corazon. Right.
It's the need for connection, like
Yeah.
that willingness to connect, right? I used to work at BJ's. I worked in hospitality, and there was a gentleman and his son, and they appeared to be of Latino origin. And I do know a bit of Spanish. I can get through an order.
Yeah.
We'll say that. And for some reason, it wasn't happening. Like there was it was quick, and he was like frustrated, and I was like, 1 second, let me find somebody to help you. And I grabbed one of my coworkers who spoke Spanish, and I was watching because I wanted to like be there to step in if I needed to. And the frustration was still there. And then it clicked for me because the communication was stilted and there was a lot of pointing. And I went up to him and I asked him, I was like, do you sign? Are you deaf? And he said yes. And the look on his face
Yeah.
when he recognized that he could still have that level of communication. He thanked the gentleman who I had reached out to. He thanked me. His son was engaged with me. It's so much to be able to look for where people want to connect with you and make that effort to make that connection. And it's cultural.
My
just as much.
professor, once again,
You
my
know?
professor.
Yeah.
Whether it's bonding over,
Great teacher.
homemade tamales, or knowing what menudo is, or having a preference for homemade horchata versus like Safeway brand horchata. Like
Right.
really, right? But it's not just appreciating the things that the culture
Right.
can give you.
Yeah.
It's appreciating where those things come from within the culture. And I think that a lot of people miss that. Like you can appreciate the food, you can appreciate the clothes.
Right.
But if you don't understand the history of that food,
The
and
history, the traditions,
Yeah.
like the sentimental value that is associated with those traditions.
yeah, and it's all steeped, all minority groups, everything they do, from the way they do their hair to how they eat
Yeah.
to what they eat, is steeped in deep cultural traditions
Yeah.
that have been passed down from generation to
Yeah.
generation, and sometimes in spite of others trying to take those things from them.
Right. Like something so small. Yesterday, and I don't know if this is a norm in like other cultures, but yesterday my younger sister turned 18. So we did a small like birthday
Yeah.
cake cutting thing. In growing up, you give the first slice of cake to the person you respect the most. So
Really?
That's cool.
Yeah,
I
so-
love that.
so she waved
that.
like she didn't blow out her candle. She did it with the like little paper whatever.
Yep.
She cut her cake, made her wish, and then she gives the cake to my mom. So it's like those small things,
Right.
And you notice,
right, that bring
it
us.
says something.
But that in itself, it's like all the things that we are celebrating as Hispanic heritage. It's like the things that our parents, like at least my parents and grandparents, did in like normally in Mexico, that still brings them here, that they'll do here, that reminds them of where they come from.
Yes.
Like this is my home. The U.S. is my home. California is my home, but it's not my mom's home.
Right.
It's not her land. It's not where she grew up.
Right.
So all those things, the little traditions, the little sayings, all those things, it's like that's really what we're celebrating so that we don't forget, where do we come from? Where do our grandparents come from?
Yeah.
Why
It
do we
keeps
do
them
the
with
things
us.
we do?
Araceli, the echo and the ripple of what you just said about the first slice of cake will live with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably going to
100%.
adopt that.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
And then educate why we're doing that.
And
when we're doing
Yes.
it,
share
right?
that
Yes.
history.
So real quick, we are probably over time at this point, but that's what happens with
Let's
these
blame
amazing, awesome conversations.
yeah.
So
Material.
one thing is, you've said it now a few times, minority, but you're working on educating me and others with the global majority
Yep.
instead of minority.
I did.
So I just wanted to call you out and have some fun with that because it's true.
I love that statement,
Yeah.
and I have tried to get everybody that I know to incorporate it
100%.
into the language because it is increasing and not decreasing. It brings growth and it does not shrink. People of color are the global majority,
Yeah.
and it should be celebrated. And you're right. I do keep saying minority.
I just
and
had to have some fun with that because I
Thank
know.
you.
And then also on the global majority and building community. Again, thank you for being here, being part of our community. A big reason why Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation is what it is because of the relationship we've had with the School to
Yeah.
Career and this isn't going to sound right, but the constant feeding of students from the School to Career
pipeline.
program, the pipeline, much
it
better.
is.
Thank
It
you.
is the good pipeline, guys.
To-
Yes.
It's the good one.
to us to continue doing what we love to do the most. So I hope people rewatch this episode multiple times.
So many
There
good
has
pieces.
been
There's good
an
nuggets in here.
amazing amount of good nuggets.
Yeah.
My big takeaway is first slice of cake for sure.
Yeah.
To the one I respect the
Awesome.
most, and then it's really all about community
Tradition.
and understanding the traditions and why.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, any last thoughts, words of wisdom that you would like to continue to impart on us because we got to end the show sooner or later?
Thank you for having me on here to talk a little bit about myself and what I do.
Aren't you glad we didn't plan anything?
I love.
We planned on being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
we
about as
plan on
far as
being
we
here.
got.
Yeah. I would just say what we're trying to do is just make sure everybody is proud of where they come from and acknowledges where they come from and keep on going.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Gratitude.
guys.
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Attitude of gratitude in this latitude. Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on Donuts for Breakfast, where action meets compassion here at Desire to Inspire Studios Foundation. That was a mouthful.
You did so good
and
there.
thank you very much again, Araceli, for being part of our community.
This
We're
was
glad to
awesome.
be part of yours. Remember, go out there, smile, share a compliment someone, share the reason why you're doing something to I'm butchering it now.
No, you
it was
did
on the right
fine.
track. But if you're celebrating Hispanic heritage, Latino heritage, Latino X heritage, I'm
Latinx?
butchering. Oh yeah, Latinx. Sorry, I'm butchering all of it. But if you wonder why, ask and share the story of why it's happening.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's been the biggest
Yeah.
awesome takeaway. So thank you very much. I will
Take
stop
care.
now. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Let me tell you guys.
Wait, give it a half a second because we're still on audio.